Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This speaking show we're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Falling Water. Another great episode. This episode just kind of builds upon what I've already brought up before in the previous episode, just how this season has already been I feel like they've kind of pushed the envelope with the season with just a lot of the environments they build upon. Like I said, it's no more they're dreaming or they awake. It's no, it's a situation of obviously they made a clear distinction, but also just their approach this entire season. I feel like it's got a different, obviously aesthetic and feel and flow to it compared to season one, just because season one was a lot of setup. They kind of built doing a lot of world building, and I feel like they're doing that even more in this season. For instance, because I'm going to get right into it, just jumping all over the place, but it's the fact is they've given names to the different abilities people can do. For example, obviously Tess, Bill never gave her an actual title, but he was just oh, you're the best tracker, so I guess she's just a tracker. Then you have someone Lainey, who is an engineer. They're the ones who are very good at constructing their own worlds. And you have someone like Burton, who is a skater, who basically... Essentially, it's almost like Burton ignores the world. He ignores the boundaries that the engineer built, and is kind of able to just essentially face through walls, kind of facing into the mirror like he did, kind of bleeding over his waking world into his dreaming world, or vice versa in that sense. So it's just so interesting that they give him titles like that. I was oh, that's so cool. It's kind of cool because this way you differentiate the different dreamers and different abilities and different, things. I thought that's kind of interesting because no one is ever shown to have the same ability as Burton. People can tap into what Burton does to a certain extent. Woody can, as he brought up last season, he skates around the edges, but what Burton does is on a completely different level. So it's kind of interesting seeing them kind of titling it. And we also learned an interesting fact that was never brought up in season one, was the fact of how the proximity works. That the fact of the matter is, when it comes to going into someone else's dream, there has to be at least the maximum length is 100 meters is as far away as you can be before you cannot be it's as far as you can be away from someone to still be able to kind of enter their dream. So I thought like I could say just they're expanding upon stuff that they never brought up in season one. I thought that's just so fascinating. Cause what I meant by in particular the environments and stuff like that, at the very end of the episode, the stadium that Taka takes Alex to, the whole place that Lainey was in. The fact of the matter is it's almost like an Inception thing, like a dream within a dream almost type of thing, but it's the entire place that Tess found her at is no, this isn't the real place. It's kind of more of a labyrinth, make you keep looking around for her, but she's not there. She's in a painting on the wall, so it's a deeper, that's the real dreamscape, where everything else, the house itself, is more like a outside protection, essentially, kind of get you kind of all track, so I thought that was kind of interesting. Got so much else to kind of break down about this episode. Since I'm already talking about it, the fact of the matter is Tess and Burton meet up with Bill again, which, first of all, I like that automated system, and Tess being a blah 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 blah, and it was I don't understand. She's oh, I just said to shove it up your robotic ass. I was that legitimately made me laugh. I was I love you, Tess. But the fact is that Bill kind of comes out and he's just oh my god, I thought you were lost forever. What I appreciate about this episode too, because in my mind I was oh, Bill's a bad guy. I was even going as far as oh, he's got to be the Shadow Man. Could be, but I highly doubt that's the case. But nevertheless, we kind of understand Bill a little bit more. He made it clear last season. It's everything he did trying to get James was all for the purposes of he wanted to basically be on good terms with Tess. Last season kind of brought that up, but he's well, everything you've done, you kind of going about everything a shady way. It's just because in Bill mind, he wanted her to be part of his research. That's what this is all about. He wanted Tess to be happy. So, oh my god, you helped bring back my son and everything. You saved him. And it's oh yeah, I'm in your debt. oh good. Now you gladly be a part of my research. That was all it was. Because he needed people like Tess and James, because they're very powerful dreamers. Because basically he's trying to create a technology, basically kind of like the futuristic technology of oh yeah, you learn all this different information and people can advertise to you in your dreams. Basically your dreams become more than just what they are. They become the form of entertainment, rather than worrying about getting on the internet to see videos you can lay down, go to sleep type, that type of thing. Everything is circulated within the dream world, essentially. it's kind of what he's trying to aim for, that kind of future. Obviously, the technology isn't there. He's had a few people kind of be test subjects. Some of the people that, like, Burton had on his list were said test subjects, but none of them can quite compare because none of them are powerful dreamers. That's why he needs people like Tess and James, because they would be very vital to his research. The closest he got was a girl named Laney in this case, and she's the closest thing he can find to like a powerful dreamer. She's not as powerful as Tess, but she's got the potential. But it seems like she's being captured by someone. And I like that effect of like her being in a chair, like being strapped down, and it was just kind of like her fading in and out. So the question is that because they were trying to wake her up? Or is it maybe something like they gave her medicine or something to make it so that she doesn't dream, so they don't have to worry about her trying to reach out to someone? Or, was the medicine to wake her up from, like, what was going on with that particular situation? Like, it seemed like it was kind of a situation of her waking up, because it was like you slowly kind of saw it, like, through Lainey's eyes. It was like, I guess, that in-between state between waking up and being asleep, and she was kind of, like, opening her eyes, and you could see them, either that was them strapping her in before, or was that them kind of dealing with her now because they knew that she was talking to somebody or something, which begs the question of, like, does that mean someone's watching her from the outside, or did she kind of sneak off somewhere and kind of like in her mind and dreamed, and they're like, oh no, she's dreaming, we got to wake her up before? That's the question. Big question is, though, who captured her, and like, why are they holding her? Are they holding her specifically because she can do what she can do? She is a powerful dreamer, so especially because like she is an engineer, so I guess that should say a lot. Because in retrospect, it's like, because no one in season 1 really built any worlds like in this particular case, because like each one of them's got their own special ability. Like I said, Tess being a tracker, in this case Burton being a skater. Don't really know what Taka would really, because I always find it hard to distinguish what Taka's power is. I think his power is the fact is that he's very good at pulling people into his world. I think that's his special thing. It's like someone can try and like, I think pulling into dreams, I think is kind of like Taka's special ability. I don't know. I'm probably like getting that wrong, but it's really hard to for me, it's hard to define what Taka's ability really is, like his special thing. So there's never been an engineer in the series, because all the dreams are obviously based on subconscious stuff of like, oh yeah, this is this place, blah, blah, blah. Like it was, if there was an engineering aspect to it, it was never really a big focus. It never, obviously back then it didn't have a name, so, but now it does. Once again, these are all Bill's names for them, so, which I'm obviously are going to be names that we, as the audience can start referring to them as. Like I said, I really appreciate it, because it's like, I like being able to call skills, like, it's like a special technique, and it's like, oh yeah, this is your technique. I'm glad to have a name for it, because it gives it a one word to kind of sum it up. It's like, oh, what Burton could do. Oh, he's a skater. And it's like, oh, someone else pops up that can do what Burton do. Oh my God, this person's a skater too. It's a lot more simpler to be like, oh yeah, they can like bleed their dreaming life into the waking life. It's a lot simpler that way. So I really appreciate that. So I guess that might be why Lainey's so special, because she is an engineer. Maybe there's not a lot of engineers out there, and maybe Lainey's at the top. I mean, who's to say this group isn't just collecting dreamers in general? So I don't know. I do appreciate the fact is that this season is, like I brought up earlier, like making it seem like, oh yeah, Bill's not that much of a bad guy. He's still a little scummy about the way he wanted to handle things last season. I mean, because it's like, oh, I wanted to save James, so you'd kind of be in my debt. I wanted to help you out, sure. Trying to pretend like you're her friend and everything, but, so it's kind of interesting too, because, Lainey kind of bailed out of this, like, study project and everything. The question is why? So, I mean, that's another thing we can add to the long list. And then also there is Taka's side of the story, which I kind of dived into a little bit, is the whole aspect of they track down the van, which, really quickly start by talking about the fact is that dream Taka has. It sucks. The moment Sabine walked in, I was like, yep, that's a dream. She's like, oh yeah, it was a misunderstanding. It's like, I watched you kill my mom, and his mom's walking downstairs. And it's sad because like, this is what Taka would want. Is like, he'd want his mom back and he wants Sabine, but it's like all that's kind of getting messed up. And it's just like, oh, he's having this happy moment and it's taken away from him. The food's rotting, and immediately I'm like, it's the Shadow Man. Like, he's doing that to mess with you. He didn't pop up in a dream specifically, so either it's just that Taka's having a nightmare, but I feel like that was something the Shadow Man kind of sent in his way. Maybe that's not the case, but it was just kind of like too specific. Like, it was, like I said, it could have just been a simple nightmare, Just because a dream happens doesn't mean someone else is involved in this case. There are just regular dreams, so. But because of, you can see that Taka's just kind of on edge. He's not sleeping much just because of that. So the fact is he didn't bring it up to anyone makes it seem like, well, it might not be Shadow Man related. But I kind of get the inkling like it might have been, but maybe that's not the case. But he ended up tracking down the van. Taka kind of breaks into it, kind of willing to do whatever just because it's like he's on edge. He wants to try and figure this out as soon as possible so he can clear Sabine's name. Alex is kind of worried about him, but at the same time, it's like, you're my partner, so I'm going to have your back. Then there's the guy who was walking down the street who ended up killing himself. And then Taka chases after the guy who came. I didn't even notice. I was like, why Taka pinpointed him out until he brought it up later. It's like, yeah, the dude came out the same brownstone that dude. I was like, oh, that's a good enough reason to chase after him. But I also appreciate the fact is that Taka breaks this whole situation down to Alex. She doesn't believe him at first. But, you know, after their dream, which I like that. She's just sitting in, God, what would you call that? Interrogation room, and it's snowing, and she's like, I'm just having a bad day. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, here we're at this baseball stadium, and they're just like knocking balls, and it's just like an invisible crowd cheering and everything, and it's just like them bonding like that. It's just a beautiful moment. And also like him waking up and her waking up and like, yo, what's up with that, Slugger? It's like, what'd you call me? It's like, oh, you know, I didn't know you'd be much of a jock, you know. And she's just like shocked and everything. And she's like, what, it's real? It is like, yep, it is. So Alex is on board. I was like, dude, I was so excited. The moment he started bringing it up, I was like, oh man. I was like, I guess the easiest way could be he go inside her dream. It's like, and then I was like, I guess not. Cause he didn't suggest anything, but then she was getting ready to sleep. I was like, oh, there's his opportunity, which I love Alex being like, all right, so we're going to do this, but obviously we can't use this dream stuff in your quote unquote intuition, which, you know, is the dream stuff. We can't use this to convict the Shadow Man. We need hard evidence. So for that, we're going, as much as possible, we're going to do this by the book. So Taka's like, yeah. And I also appreciate Alex being like, also, if you go into my dreams without my permission again, I'm going to hit you hard, bro. Which immediately my brain goes, but this might be something we see later on where it's like either Alex might turn out to be a powerful dreamer, or, you know, like at the very least, like maybe she starts trying to do it on her own. Maybe she gets inside her girlfriend's dream, see stuff she doesn't want to see. That's immediately where my brain goes, and that might be a storyline that we go down. Also, I meant to bring this up last week. I meant to put it in the comments, but I forgot. Is the fact is, finally remember what it was. I remember the actress who plays Alex from. It's from Notorious. That's like the most recent thing I saw her in. And she was like, she worked at the new station with Julia. I forgot her character's name, but she was like one of her friends at the place that Julia worked in, the ABC show Notorious. Yeah, that's where I recognize her from. I'm going to butcher the actress's name. I think it's Sefidi Malfi. I know I'm probably horribly butchering that, and I just super apologize. It's just, I'm terrible with names. That's just, I want to kind of add that in there. And then a final note I want to add about this episode is Woody's side of things was kind of interesting. I did appreciate him kind of jumping from dream to dream, looking for this Greg. And his side story kind of brought up something interesting to me, like, because I brought this up, like, when he was having that little dream, the little voyeuristic dream with the mayor, was the whole situation about her daughter walking. I was like, oh, no, that must be her real daughter. It's not her subconscious. It's like, no, it is her subconscious. So it's like, because it was something that never really came up in season 1, because any people that were in your dream, I figured, I was like, oh, maybe she's tapping into all those other people like at her office. But then again, it's like, oh, there's a 100 meters aspect. But also just because it's like, in retrospect, it's like, I should have known that was like, because the whole Amelia situation was her subconscious coming at her, especially bringing up Greg and everything. Because the fact of the matter is, it was her own guilt, because Amelia isn't her husband's daughter. It's a child from an affair with this guy, Greg. So it was all just manifestations of her subconscious. That really wasn't her daughter. So I was like, so I was kind of right to think that at the beginning, but like I second guessed myself. I was like, no, that's got to be really her daughter. And those must be, because, you know, the whole aspect of Topeka being like, oh, this place where everyone's dreams are connected. But obviously that's limited, you know, unless, you know, which is kind of interesting too. They don't reference it as Topeka in this season. I just thought about that too. Like Topeka was a name that was given to it, but I guess it's because that was like all the different groups gave it that. Because even like in this episode, it's like, what did they call it? They called it the Dreamscape. So I guess they're like, I guess it was meant to be like a code word, but now it's kind of out in the open. You don't need a code word to describe the dreamscape now that everyone knows about it and everything. But it was like, that was supposed to be the name for the world, but I guess it was just kind of like the word I guess it was like specific people gave it that name, so it's kind of like, well, we're not going to do that. We're just going to call it a dreamscape. I guess, I don't know. I just thought it was kind of interesting. But like Bill's pods will probably be, leading into the aspect of connecting dreams far and wide to be able to go like connect to someone's dream like miles and miles away, like someone halfway across the world type of situation. So, but what I thought was interesting about Woody's side of the story is he meets with Whitaker, which the actor who plays Whitaker, I want to say the most recent thing I saw him in. I've seen him in quite a few things. No, it actually has to be Suicide Squad. I was about to say, because it's interesting because this is really weird thing. That actor, he popped up in Suicide Squad. He actually played, what's that character's name? He's the lead, Joel McKinnon's character. Not Joel McKinnon, Joel Kinnaman's character in the Suicide Squad movie. That actor who played Whitaker in this episode, he played that character in Smallville, which was kind of interesting considering he plays a small role in the movie Suicide Squad, so I'm sure that was casting on purpose. I just thought it was kind of interesting. But nevertheless, that's just me all over the place. Basically, Woody brings his information to him and Bennett, and he's like, oh, great, we can use this. It's like the mayor, Harding, she uses this whole platform of being family first and everything. And it's like, oh, she had an affair, even had a child out of that affair, and that she's parading that child to be her husband's child when in actuality it isn't. But Bennett's not really, she kind of goes what Woody said. Woody's like, hey, let's keep this low key. We don't need to kind of blast this out there. And Bennett's like, yeah, I agree with Woody. And I love that, like, Whitaker kind of yells, and it's like, the dog starts growling, and she's like, oh, like, Brutus doesn't like people get loud. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. She's like, you should apologize. And he's like, yeah, you're right. I'm so sorry. She's like, no, don't apologize to me. Apologize to Brutus. And it's like, he has to apologize to the dog, and it's a little funny. Just shows you how important that dog, which I also at the same time kind of shows you kind of Bennett's mind. I think she's going to prove to be scary. Just that mindset of like, apologize to my dog. He's the one that really matters in this situation. It's like, okay. Because it's almost saying like, yeah, my Brutus is up here. You're down here. Don't act like you're on the same level. You upset my dog. That upsets me, you should respect him. It's just that weird thing of like, oh, nevertheless. Woody even tried to contact the mayor to like, hey, I'll handle this, and I will, try and get her to back out of this. Like, he's starting to trying to spin all that to the mayor, but while they're, at dinner, he's trying to do all this. The news breaks because her phone starts blowing up, and she gets outed like that. And you see the look on Woody's face. He's like, I didn't want that. Because even from the beginning, Bennett was kind of like, whoa. Like, even the previous episode where Bennett was like, oh, are you kind of liking her? And he's just like, no. And even this episode tried to spin it like, it's less of an issue. It's like, if we do this, it's kind of like, he was almost trying to make it seem like Whitaker, things wouldn't work out the way Whitaker would want them to. So it's like, hey, let's keep this quiet, get her to secretly walk away, and it's fine and dandy. But it's just, the question is it because Woody respects her? And it's like, actually, it's like, I feel kind of guilty about this. I'm destroying your chances of winning because you're actually a good person and everything. And I respect you and everything you're trying to do. Kind of what he told Bennett before, because even Bennett was like, do you like this woman? Do you admire her? It's like, well, yeah, I admire her as a powerful woman. Even asking like, Bennett, why are you trying to take down a fellow woman who's trying to do good? And it's just like, for Bennett, it's like, well, I'm hired to do the job I'm hired to do, It has nothing to do with a particular situation. So Woody's kind of already made it clear how he really feels about this situation. And it's like, but is it that level of like, oh, she'd be good as mayor and continuing to be mayor? Or is it because like, oh, I actually kind of like you? Because once again, Woody has a tendency to blur lines once again with, that dude's wife last season. So I don't know. Like I said, once again, like I when I brought that up before, that was kind of personal. This is more of a job, but So the question is, who did it? Was it Whitaker who did it himself? I feel like more likely than anything it's him. There's still a small chance it could have been Bennett who was just kind of like, no, I decided to do it because it's like you threw your opinion out there, but then after a little bit of time and convincing from Whitaker, I was like, I might as well put it out there. Who cares? But I think more so than anything, it's Whitaker. There won't be any ramifications for this, at least on their part. I doubt Bennett will be pissed or anything because it's like, well, it is what it is. It happened. Whitaker's going to possibly win and stuff like that. So I wonder, is Bennett getting anything out of him being mayor? Well, I'm sure like some kickbacks and stuff like that. Like Bennett needs something handled, like the mayor, with Whitaker as mayor, he can handle stuff for her. So I'm sure like another reason going along this route is because it's like, because Harding is very straight-laced, she probably wouldn't back anything that Bennett might do that might be morally gray or something like that, or borderline criminal, stuff like that. So I'm sure that's got to be something that has to be kept in mind. But I'm curious to see what goes down, because this will be a huge fallout, because basically her entire life, the scandal is going to come out about, to her husband, so her marriage is in trouble too, her daughter too. That's a lot of shit hitting the fan, essentially. So I'm curious to see what goes down, especially Woody. She might even turn to Woody because Woody tried to warn her. It's like, oh yeah, someone I knew kind of dug into this, so he tried to tell her, so she might appreciate that, which it might even make Woody feel even more guilty about it, because it's like he's the one that brought this to the surface. He's the one that's basically destroying her life, and she might end up developing feelings for him and like, relying on him. So, which is kind of makes him feel bad. You can be bad. It makes him feel bad already, because it's like he got this close to her just to basically end up destroying her life, which isn't what he wanted, but it's still, he played a big part in that. So, like I said, overall, great episode with a lot of stuff that went down. I'm very eager to see what goes down in the next episode with all this continuing forward. I am curious to see what other parts Bill is going to play in the season. Also, really quickly, literally my thoughts when I'm like, Taka and Alex are bonding. Do not kill Alex. I get the feeling it's like, you're bringing her into the fold. Her and Taka were at odds, but now they're buddy-buddy. It's like, yeah, it's like you're setting her up to get killed. Please don't kill Alex. I want her to stick around. It's just, I want that. Like, I just, like I said, I got that inkling like they're setting her up to be killed off. I hope that is not the case. That would suck so much. Hopefully that won't be the case, but once again, with everything else, we'll just have to wait and see. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.